This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution, and today we're joined by a very special guest, Mr. Mike Dunn, who's joining us all the way from Howell Mountain, California. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. For those few people in the world unfamiliar with Dunn Vineyards, would you mind telling us the story and why your father decided to grow Cabernet Sauvignon vines in Howell Mountain?
So my father got a job with Camus in '75 and found this vineyard for sale in 1977 that was planted on Howell Mountain, planted in 1972. Vineyards have been planted up here for 100 years. It's a special spot for growing grapes. Not well known back then, of course, but without any real research or anything, he just fell in love with the place and bought this vineyard. It was 4.5 acres on 14 total, and it was $40,000 in
Wow,
1977.
God. I
Uh,
shudder to think how much
that
that would
same
cost
vineyard
today.
would go for 450,000 an acre
Oh,
probably now,
God.
easily.
So quite the
So it was
investment.
serendipitous. He had a friend who was a pilot, and my dad liked to fly planes for fun. And the guy said, "Look, you got a job in Camus. Why don't you come? Why don't you buy this vineyard? I can't manage it." So, and sure enough, it needed a lot of work. So, and then promptly the neighbor asked if we would lease his vineyard, which was 6.5 acres. So, '79 was our first vintage, and it was combined 11 acres, the lease and ours. It was only about 660 cases, really small production. Um, and then we just bottled our 40th release June. Our 2018 is our 40th vintage. So time
Now,
flies.
what did your father had winemaking experience, of course, because he was at Camus, but this was the first
Yeah.
time he had ever struck out on his own, and he was definitely a pioneer of Howell Mountain at that point, right?
Yes, correct. There were other folks up here, and kind of a real tight knit community, and yeah, a couple of these folks, my dad included, decided to call this area an AVA, an
Yeah.
American Viticultural Area within the AVA of Napa County or Napa Valley. So actually, Howell Mountain was the first one. Well, second one formed. Carneros beat us by a few months, but Carneros is Sonoma and Napa County, whereas
Yes.
Howell Mountain's only Napa. So, and the town's Angwin. If you look it up on a map, at the Angwin. All pretty much 1,400 feet and above is the AVA. And that's where the natural fog layer, lies in the summer. So the Napa Valley gets fogged in the summer, fogged in the evening, and it's always sunny above the 1,400-foot level, which is the definition of our AVA. And I think the highest vineyards are about 2,300.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. And how are the soils up there? You draw from one, two, three, four, five vineyards up there, right? How
yes,
do the soils differ?
most of the mountaintops have this soil called Aiken stony clay loam, and it's a reddish hue, um, and volcanic in nature, high iron and really high potassiums in our soils. So really distinctive color. Not every site is that way, but those are the best sites usually. Um, and most mountaintops share those soil patterns along this valley. So Atlas Peak and Pritchard Hill and Mount Veeder and Spring Mountain, they probably have Aiken soils as well, but much different than valley floor alluvial soils, and there's a lot of different soils, obviously. But
And what do you believe at the end of the day the Howell Mountain AVA brings to the wine in the glass? If you were in a blind tasting, for example, I mean, you've been working with these wines for so long. How would you
yeah,
identify a Howell Mountain wine?
well, the intensity, the structure, the tannins in mountain fruit in general, and I think specifically Howell Mountain, we tend to be pretty sunny and warm and pretty extractive. So in the ripe extremes would be blackberry fruit, and then backing off of that cassis, red and black cassis, those kind of things. Brambly uh, minerality also tends to be expressed here. Definitely some nuance of soil. versus more of a pure or elegant fruit in the valley floor. Keep in mind our berries are really small, so we have very
Mhm.
little pulp, a lot of skin. So they're pretty tough at first. They take or 31, 32 months from barrel, which is about a year longer than most cabs. So they really need polishing and be handled deftly so that you're not extracting so much tannins. But those tannins and those pigments are really what helps these wines age. And that would be another huge aspect of mountain fruits and Howell Mountain in particular. Long lived wines.
You have a
Just tiny.
library collection there, right?
Yes, we do. We have 79 up, but not enough for sale anymore. Yeah,
When was the last time you tasted a 79?
good question. Probably about a year ago, but I'm going to be tasting one. Believe it or not, I have a customer, a really good customer, that's going to bring me all of our wines August 21st, and we're going to have
Oh,
a vertical here. So
oh,
yeah,
that's a real
but
treat.
the best kind of customers actually bring you your wines.
Yeah, I'd say.
So
Now,
we'll visit 79. Yeah.
here's a question for you. As you've been working, you describe yourself as the cellar grunt, but you basically run the operation there, right? So, how have you seen the winemaking style evolve since 1979? Has the winemaking, has the vinification and the viticulture changed at all? So, has the style of Dunn Vineyards wines evolved?
It's a great question. To backtrack, I don't actually run everything yet, and I
Oh,
never will.
okay.
I don't run the office. I don't do sales and marketing to distributors, things like that. But yeah. So I was 12 years old when we moved here in '78.
Well,
Um, I started working in the vineyards for my dad. I wasn't really aware of what was going on, other than it was a chore. That's how I earned money. Um, I came back in '99 and started learning from Randy and also other winemakers. A very generous group of folks, that
mhm.
like to share information for sure. Um, I would say we're one of still the most primitive wineries as far as production methods. We're very traditional. We don't even have a sorting table, for instance. We have a very consistent fruit source of our own vineyards, which is a huge key to the style. I would say that uh, global climate change has probably influenced a bit of the style in some of the years where we've had some really warm vintages. 2004, for instance, 2014. Um, we weren't able to hang that fruit as long as we like
Mhm.
to. The alcohol's under 14%. So my dad is a fan of de-alking those vintages where we really do need to wait. Sugar accumulation's happening so quickly, you can't really slow it down. So, and your flavors are still not there. So those
You,
both those
you,
vintages 14 and 4 were we had to remove about a 1% because he's adamant he likes his wines under 14%.
right, but you're still
But
waiting for that phenolic ripeness in those situations, right?
correct. I'm a little less draconian in that 14% mark. Bear in mind, most of the time we're in the 14.2s, the 14.4s.
Right.
We still pick fairly early compared to people in general in the valley. Um, for instance, I was just doing 2017 vineyard notes for our distributor, and I think our average bricks was 25.
Mhm.
So that's really low. Um, used to be everyone picked at 22, 23 in the 70s. So things have changed along
Wow.
those lines. Part of that's consumer driven, right? Or critic driven. People are making riper wines for the consumer,
Yes.
particularly California. Um,
Is it
my
reverse
dad,
osmosis you use to get rid of that excess alcohol? And
correct. That's the preferred method for us. What's not preferred is you have to ship the wine out and a bit of it out and then return it, bring it back and then blend it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so that's risky, but to do it on site is prohibitive. The old-fashioned way of doing this was to add water and at
Yeah, yeah.
fermentation, and it's completely legal and actually done a lot in California. I would say most California cab producers, at least Napa Valley, add water to the cabs. back to that same, developing phenolic ripeness, replacing the water left, lost to desiccation in the
Yes.
vineyard.
Yeah, I understand.
But it's actually legal, though, with the caveat, I think, you wouldn't want to do it endlessly, but that's our position. Some people can get away with quite big water adds, and you're bound to dilute the color a bit, but in the
Yeah.
presence of skins during fermentation, it's really it's much more assimilated into
Yeah,
the
I
finished
understand.
product. Much
Now,
different than adding water to finished wine, for instance.
yes, I
Yeah.
understand.